All right, so once again, here we go again.
My name is Adrian Hennessy and I consent to all this.
So all this meaning us interviewing you.
Yeah, the interview, the questions, whatever you want to do.
All right.
I had a job, no, I currently am not working due to unforeseen circumstances. My father's ill and they shut the business down. I was a law clerk for a paralegal service. Now, as far as myself personally, it's usually tragedies and traumas that bring you to some form of disability or debilitation. And that would be a loss of a loved one, a traumatic injury like
Yeah.
myself. In 1973, I was telling you earlier, I was playing street hockey, got hit by a stone. The stone caught me underneath the bottom of my eye and pushed it back in my socket and accordioned my optic nerve. However, for 11 years beyond that point, I kept telling doctors I can see. They kept saying, no, you can't. I said, yes, I can. No, you can't. I said, it's just shadow vision. So I came to Toronto and I met a gentleman by the name a surgeon at the St. Michael's Eye Clinic. He gave me a corneal transplant. I got 20% of my vision back. Then he gave me 4 more corneas because my body kept rejecting the donor grafts. I got 60% of my vision back in 1983. But my body rejected the cornea and it went opaque. I couldn't see through it. But I kept the eye under the misconception that medical technology would catch up with me and then I'd possibly be able to get some sight back in the eye. Well, in 1997, after smoking some crack cocaine, my ex and I were what we call weekend warriors. We both had jobs, we both worked on Fridays, we were rewarding ourselves. It started off with just a little bit of powder and you do a couple lines and everything's great. And it wouldn't get any further than that. Next thing you know, it's like, well, I heard that if you cook this stuff, it's freebase, and one thing led to another. We started smoking this freebase stuff. There are a number of incidentals. One, I openly admit to you guys, I'm a recovering addict. As long as I don't take that one puff, I'm good to go. It started December 12th, 2016. I was living at 315 Lakeshore. The apartment started on fire at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
It burned. I lost everything I owned. I went to the shelter. I stayed there for one night because there were people that were doing things that I felt were inappropriate that first night I was there.
Yeah,
I didn't stay. I left. My girlfriend at the time had a friend who said we could stay at her place for a couple months. That lasted 2 weeks and I ended up back at the shelter.
Oh.
No insurance, nothing. I lost everything I owned.
So
That's
you stayed there one night, and then after that, where'd you go?
To a friend's place out at Ontario and Queen Street, way the heck up in Brampton.
Yeah, I know that.
Wow.
So totally away from my work, totally away from everything.
That's far.
So I ended up, I was there for 2.5 weeks and ended up back at the shelter.
What'd you think about the shelter? What's your expectations, and has it
Well,
fulfilled any of your expectations?
to be brutally honest, my expectation was that I was going to a place that I assumed that I'd receive some kind of assistance or let's say, compassionate care due to circumstances and the incidentals that brought me there in the first place. How do I feel about the shelter? I think the shelter is great. I think there's a few flaws in the processes, procedures, and protocol that they use to establish, one, what's wrong, what's potentially wrong with you. And when I say wrong, I don't really mean wrong. What illnesses you might have, what barriers and obstacles to be involved in finding you housing, finding you employment. The whole purpose of the shelter is to get you in, feed you, house you, find a place to live and get you out. When you're in a place like a shelter, they give you what's called basic needs.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask the three of you, could you possibly live off $320 a month?
No.
See, it should be a dual-edged sword. You're looking for a house and seeking employment at the same time, because it's kind of like the judicial system. Recidivism is the biggest problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you break the law, you get into jail, you finish your time, you get out.
Yeah.
If you stay within the subculture in the prison and don't do anything to integrate yourself back into society, you're going to end up breaking the law and going back to prison. That's how it works.
Exactly.
Now, I make that comparison, as metaphorically. As far as the shelter goes, there should be a different plan. You should have caseworkers that deal with the housing, social housing, and you should have caseworkers that deal with the employment issue. Yeah, because if you walk out of the place with a job and a place to live,
Chances are you're probably not going to come back.
exactly, and you've got the revenue to be able to pay for the place you're moving into.
Yeah.
There's also the addiction issues. There's no real NA meetings per se at the shelter. I mean, once a week I hear, people would like to go to Alcoholics Anonymous, there's a meeting upstairs at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
If the shelter made it, listen, Everybody's in there for a reason. However, you have to accept ownership and responsibility for your own digressions, whatever they may be.
Yeah.
You know, if you're an alcoholic and you drink too much alcohol, do something about it. If you're a drug addict and you're taking drugs all the time, do something about it. Now, the shelter should be pushing these people to do something about it. My caseworker is fantastic. Her name's Charlene. She takes you right out to the apartment. She'll take time off work, put you in her personal vehicle, and drive you to a place to look at and talk to a landlord. But you know, she's there for you. She's the type of person that hasn't lost sight of what the actual deal is. You're there to help people. Well, I've learned a tool that the system is basically set up to fail. No matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, there is never a real light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And I'm living proof of it. I'm back at the shelter within the same year, within the same 12 months, a second time. Did I go wrong? Did the system go wrong? I can't blame other people for my own issues. I take responsibility and ownership for my own digressions. However, if the system was a little finer tuned, so to speak, it would work a lot better. The process, procedure, and protocol for social welfare. I would create a program wherein the actual recipients of welfare would be there'd be an expectation. They'd have an onus and responsibility to improve their lives by receiving the benefits from, or financial benefits from OW based upon their own ability to progress. So that they'd know, push come to shove, the whole ultimate goal is to make you a responsible, constructive, contributing citizen of Canada. And that is as simple as you get up every day, you go to work, you get home from work, you sit down, you put your feet up on your sofa, you crack open your Molson Canadian, you take a sip of it, you watch the news, or you play a guitar, you do whatever you're going to do. People who are disabled, people are not in a position to seek gainful employment, whether it be from a mental disability, whether it be from a physical disability. Those people are special needs. They should be exempt from the whole system. You understand what I mean?
No.
They should have their own system, their own benefits package. There is not, ODSP is a joke.
Yeah, you can keep going. Go ahead.
Okay, so when I say it's a joke, I mean, I am physically disabled and can't get ODSP. But because Buddy smokes 14 grams of crack a day, he's totally disabled. He gets the $1,300 a month. Things can change. You can make things change. If you really want things to change, we can change the world, man, if you want to. And if you press the right buttons and use the right train of thought, I mean, it's all about helping each other. Whether I have a job, whether you have a job, you have a job, anywhere in life, walking down the street, I open a door for somebody, not because I have to. And here in the city, the resources are there. They're just not allocating them properly and in the right direction. There are hundreds of empty, vacant government buildings right this minute.
Yeah.
They're costing we read the paper today, $19 million a year to maintain all these empty, unoccupied buildings. $19 million a year to maintain them. They're empty. They're vacant.
Wow.
Nobody's using them. Hello. How much?
That's like
And you see, here's
gentle
here's the other side that the government negates. These homeless people, some of them are pretty damn skilled.
Yeah.
Now, you take some of those skilled homeless people and say, you see this giant building? I want you to create 50 lofts in this warehouse. Build me 50 lofts in this warehouse. Here's the equipment. Go.
How did you end up living in the shelter?
Well, I had to wait over a year. I became homeless November the 10th, 2015, and they didn't have a spot for me in the shelter system until August the 2nd, 2016. So I was staying on the street, in the graveyard. I was at Comfort Group Homes in Scarborough. They tell everybody they've always got a place for people, a lot physically disabled people.
Has the shelter contributed towards your expectations?
No, not
If not, why?
because it's not set up to help physically disabled people. It's very ill-equipped, but a lot of them, they don't want to get their own places. Why should they change when they're enabled to do their lifestyle, do their drugs, do their hooking, get free clothes, get a free place to sleep, get their food, get their laundry done and everything? Why should they, there's no impetus for them to change their lifestyle. But a lot of the regulars, they think it's if they think it's a hotel or something, it's a free hotel. They're like spoiled teenagers, indulged teenagers. And these are people in their 40s, 50s, some of them in their only in their 30s. But they're not going to change when the system is just enabling them. So, I mean, I don't know why this is called a homeless shelter, why the caseworkers are called housing workers, because most of the clients there, the regulars, don't even bother looking for a place to live, because they know they can come and go as they please. The whole social service system that we have, right from the top. Before I lost my apartment, I got hold of the Queen of England, Prime Minister, the Premier, the Mayor, MPs, the Ombudsmen, regional councillors, city councillors. Nobody helped. No help for people with physical disability. None. 48 community agencies in the region of Peel to help out with homelessness and affordable housing. Not one of them is geared for people with physical disabilities. Not one. Tried before I lost my 3 cats and everything I own. I tried. I reached out. My ODSP worker suggested that I get a roommate in a 1-bedroom apartment. And I said, well, I've got a 1-bedroom apartment. She says, her pat answer, my ODSP worker, her pat answer to me was always, well, you can always go to a shelter, Brent. Well, there's something that happened before then. Long story about the Landlord Tenant Board and the City of Grafton property inspectors. And ODSP and OW approved me to sign this lease for an apartment for $1,035 plus hydro. Now I received $1,139 from ODSP, but I'd been on the list for affordable housing, subsidized housing, so I just presumed that they were going to give me the money so that I could sustain the place. They expected me to live on less than $100 a month. And luckily I had some money put aside, and I lasted from December 15th to 2014 to November the 10th, 2015. But I have no money in my savings account, my credit rating shot, and I lost everything I owned and my 3 cats. Shorted, I don't have a credit rating. The services that are available are for people with mental disabilities and addiction problems. There's my mental freaking disability. I got a new program they put in place called Housing First, and I signed a contract. And I was supposed to work with this woman, and she was supposed to help me get a place by November the 1st. She's been on holidays, and she didn't get back till October the 30th. So how does this contract? Now I've had 3, this is my 3rd, since I've been in Mississauga, since August 2nd last year, I'm on my 3rd ODSP worker. Now, how am I going to get any help with the ODSP? They keep on handing me out to somebody else. I don't know. I got to start all over again. I mean, I'm just getting shit on left, right, and center. It's like nobody can hear me, nobody can see me. I'm not invisible. I tried to get on the priority list for medical reasons and because I was assaulted and everything. And to get priority for assault, you have to go to the police station and pay for the police reports. As a victim, you have to go to and pay them for the police reports. I'm not going to another region. Doctor is here. I've had him for 15 years. I ain't changing doctors. My PSW, my Transel, everything. I've lived in the region of Peel. And how can a physically disabled person, how can it be all right for me to be on the streets? How? I got a physical disability that I've had since the age of 1. Now I've been independent most of my life. Now I need help, and the system isn't in place to help me. I should be cuckoo by now with all the shit that we got. Yeah. Well, there needs to be a program in place for people with physical disabilities because there isn't one. And I don't know how that can be. Because I hear about human rights all the time. What, because I'm physically disabled, I've got no human rights? Are you kidding me? People look at me and they think because I'm physically disabled that I'm mentally disabled. Or that because I can walk with a walker, I can do everything else for myself. They don't understand. Because they don't take the time to understand. You know, I need a place that's accessible to live in, that I can sustain. I can do most things by myself. I've got devices. It takes me a bit longer to do them, but I can do them. And what I can't do, I get people to help me with. PSW and CCAC. You know? Yeah, because, I mean, places that I've heard that the workers here are sending other people to that are physically fine and everything. There's closets, there's rooms with families deep freeze in them, and the meeting I went to last week, they've approved, the city of Mississauga's approved people to put second units for rent in their places, but there's no legislation, there's no regulation to say that these people are renting out decent, decent places and everything. And I know so many people, they rent these rooms and everything, and then the landlady or the landlord decides, oh, they want them out, they kick them out, and the money's gone, and, you know, there has to be regulations. Oh yeah, because I mean, I've had my disability my whole life now, and they asked me to volunteer and go around and speak with young people that have rheumatoid arthritis, and I'd be glad to. But I can't do it until I get my hip done. When I get back on my feet, I got it set through the Ontario Coalition for Persons with Disabilities to go back to school, to get a part-time job as a receptionist or a dispatcher, you know, something, and do this volunteer work on the side. $650 a month is what we're expected to live on. And we get $500 to pay for rent. $500, where are you going to find a place for $500? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's only through this subsidy, through Housing First, they're giving me $650, so along with that $500, that's $1,150. And that's the top limit for my rent. Because then I only have $650 to live off of after that. I get the numbers first, and then everybody out the door. It's me out the door. Get people that know how to do the job, want to do their job, aren't doing it just for the money, blah, 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 blah. And get some places, get some organizations in place, just specifically geared for physical disabilities. And these friggin' quacks that say they got mental disabilities because they're addicted to drugs and everything, I'd say it's mandatory. You want some help, you go for drug counseling. Something's got to change. Big time. Big time. Because I don't want to be a statistic.
LAMP is a community health center, and a community health center is a place, it's a nonprofit organization, it's a charitable organization, and it's a place where people can learn and build skills and get support. For example, you can go to LAMP and you can get help in learning how to cook well, nutritiously and affordable cooking. You can go to LAMP for your physical health. If you're a client, you can see a doctor or a nurse practitioner. You can come to LAMP and learn about literacy. This actually is our one of our rooms where literacy happens. We have a lot of support around tenants' rights, people's rights, how much they can raise the rents, and that. We try to really help the community to understand what the problems are, and then we try to get them to meet together, think together, try to come up with some solutions, and then for them to advocate on either their own personal behalf or on behalf of others to try to get the system changed, so the social determinants of health. So for example, if you don't have an education or you don't have a job, it's going to affect your health. If you don't have enough money for affordable housing, it's going to affect your health. If you don't have a job, it's going to affect your health. If you're isolated, you don't have a lot of friends or a good social network, it's going to affect your health. So we really look at health in a very broad kind of holistic means, like a big circle. And those things are really, really important to your emotional, your physical, and your health and your well-being. And you know, they say that a lot of people are like one paycheck away from being homeless. And some of the big issues that people face around affordable housing is that it really takes all of their money just to pay the rent. And sometimes they don't even have enough money to pay the rent. You know, statistics say that for seniors, it's gone up. Food bank use has gone up 27% in 1 year, and they expect it to go up way, way more next year. There's a lot of children who are food bank recipients, and they're finding that there's people like working. A lot of working people are using food banks now. That's a new trend because they just can't stretch their dollars. So, housing or affordable housing is definitely a very serious issue that really has a negative impact on people's health and well-being. So for every reason, it's the biggest issue in Toronto, in the Toronto area. It's not going to get any better unless the people, students, the whole community gets together and says, you know, we're at a tipping point now. This is enough. We need to change things so that there is affordable housing. It's definitely a really, really serious problem. So depression, stress, people not, you know, being able to eat properly, their health is being impacted. Support people around housing, and housing is the biggest issue, of course, because that is the chunk of people's income. That is where all of their pay, or if they're in school even, that's where a lot of their money goes, to housing. You've got to have a roof over your head. So I think the biggest issue for people who are looking for affordable housing is that they are paying probably 80 to 90% of their income on the rent to keep a roof over their head. So I think it's a good solution, actually. I think certainly for the people who are homeowners in less dense communities, like not communities with a lot of high-rises, I think that even they realize that it's a difficult issue and that they know people. Everybody knows somebody who's struggling today. They don't want the big monster homes. They don't want big buildings blocking their, you know, the way that all the houses are built and things like that. So I actually think it's a good solution. It's certainly a solution that from a neighbor standpoint, I think people might be more willing to allow you know, more units into their neighborhood, but not where it's overwhelming, where it's sort of having an adverse effect on the look of the community or the character, the nature of the community. But they're definitely that the neighbors would be in favor of, you know, if they're going to have a couple of extra units to go into a house. Maybe they're going to build a bigger house, but they're going to have other people living there. A lot of things in the planning process. So for example, if you build a bigger place, you're going to pay more taxes if it's all new and things like that. So maybe that they can have some things where the taxes aren't quite as heavy as it might be if they're doing rentals. So, you know, they can actually double or triple or quadruple. So there has to be some incentives there to make people want to be able to do that. But I think it costs more money that way. And the city will double or quadruple the taxes that way. And there's all these other permit fees and everything else. So it's complicated. So I guess if we want to encourage more housing or higher densities that are, you know, what's the word that you're using? Gentle densities. Then we have to make sure that the policies and procedures and permits and things are in place so that it can be affordable for people to actually do that. But I think it's a great idea.
Social housing, we assist our clients in completing the application form with housing connections, and it takes about 5 to 10 years waiting list. Okay, and there are over 67,000 people who are on the waiting list. Is that when clients come here, they expect to be housed in the next 2 weeks or 1 month, of which it's impossible. They have to wait for about 5 to 10 years.
So what do you know about gentle density?
What do you know about social housing?
What do you know about gentle density?
Gentle density, I don't know anything about gentle density, I guess.
What if I told you it's more expensive for you right now as a taxpayer? Your money is going towards transitional housing, short-term fixes, things that are just constant, a perpetual cycle of homelessness. And if you took that tax money right there and put it towards gentle density, which is all in all just building where we already have land, operate to sustain a large group of people, what would you choose? Would you rather pay taxes on foolishness, or would you rather
have a cheaper option.
cheaper option? Yeah. So do you know what gentle density is? Nope. Would you prefer saving money and having people have homes, or would you prefer having a nice property value but also struggling to find maybe your next place?
I think I would prefer them to get homes, the first option. Sounds more viable.
So do you know what gentle density is?
No.
So what gentle density pretty much is you've seen a house where they have like a nice backyard, they have space in between their house and another, it's probably a detached or semi-detached. Those are spaces that could be used for housing. Not a lot of work, it's just building within the parameters that you already have set out for urban planning.
Do you know what gentle density is?
Gentle density? In a way, yeah. I haven't really read much on it. Gentle density is something like softened, and the density is like how much you put into it or so.
So in terms of housing, gentle density refers to filling up spaces or using vacant spaces for housing that would usually be used for someone's big backyard or maybe used for someone who has a single home.
Do you know about gentle density?
No idea what it is. Like zero.
Gentle density, so taking property that we already have, we're not even using, and they're paying millions of dollars to maintain this property that no one lives on.
Yeah.
So gentle density is taking this property and using it for housing.
Recognize the fact that you're paying more for taxes for transitional housing than providing permanent housing, which would actually give you a tax break later on.
Obviously what you're saying is probably better, to give them more housing and stuff like
So
that.
that
Hello, I'm Nicholas, and I want you to know that the housing crisis in Toronto is a social housing crisis. Roughly 181,000 people are on the rent-geared income waiting list, and less than a third receive housing. That affects a lot of families. One solution for social housing is gentle density. This involves providing tax break incentives for contractors to build more low-rises and build in between detached and semi-detached homes to create gentle densities that families can move into. In fact, gentle density spills into the housing market, providing all renters and homeowners affordable options.